Hi guys, welcome back. So today we'll be taking a look at some of the Chinese stocks listed in the US. Before I begin, remember take a second to give the video a like and subscribe as you greatly help our channel. Without further ado, let's first start off with Tencent. So for Tencent, you can see that after breaking down this 37.92, we did some stop hunting here, and thereafter we saw a very much like a strong rebound. Unfortunately, you see this cloud resistance was in the way, and it seems like we see some more selling pressure ahead. So it seems that this 36.57 is likely to be broken and or even potentially retested, and perhaps even trending lower in the upcoming sessions. For the resistance to watch, it will be around 38 and also the $40 psychological resistance. Let's move on to Alibaba. So for Alibaba, you can see that currently after we have broken down this critical support at 89.30, things are already starting to turn very bearish. And in fact, as I said many times, it's likely for us to actually retest this 7801 very soon. Firstly, we have to, of course, go down towards this $80 psychological support level. And not forgetting, there is also a gap here that needs to be closed. And this low of the gap is, in fact, around $84. So we may see some bounce after this gap is closed. So moving forward, let's take a look at the resistance. So the first resistance will be the $90 psychological resistance, and thereafter will be the $95 resistance, which is this red baseline here. In the event that this 7801 do not hold, then it's likely for us to come back and retest the low of 73.28, which is still pretty far away. Let's move on to NetEase. So as you can see, NetEase it started to look a bit bearish, and you can see that similarly, there was previously a lot of support at this level here. Unfortunately, we tested it too many times, and it's like for us to break down this 30.2%, 83.96. So the next support in line will be 78.10 or even potentially 68.62 if the $80 and $70 psychological support do not hold. For the resistance to watch, it will be 85 and 89. Moving on to NIO. So for NIO, we saw a pretty good bounce after the release of its earnings. And as you can see, there was a pretty good volume coming in. So we went up with good and decent volume. So as you can see, from a low of 16.35, we actually bounced off this 38.2% from a low of 11.67 to a high of 24.43. So 38.2% is essentially the last support. If we were to break down this 16.35, and things will start to turn ugly. So as you can see, 16.35 to 24.43, we actually hit this 78.6% resistance at 22.74. And we hit around 22.74 exactly on this particular day here on 15th September. And we are starting to see some pullback. So if we can come back to retest this 22.74, that would be good. And potentially we may even come back to see this recent high of 24.43 being tested. That said, we saw this very ugly looking candle on Friday itself. For now, we are looking at some support along the cloud support level. So if we were to break down, then around 1960 at this blue conversion line and red baseline here is a very critical support for NIO. If we were to break down once again, then it's likely for us to fill this gap, which is all the way towards $16, $17. Moving on to JD. So as you can see, JD is really at this 32.2% Fibonacci support, similar to NetEase. So it's likely for us to come back and potentially retest this 23.6% at 51.89 or even potentially 46.83 if the $50 psychological support were to break down. For the resistance, it will be $58 and $60. Let's move on to Baidu. So BIDU or Baidu, you can see that we are also in a very similar situation to JD. We are at 38.2% at 122.78 levels after this 50% at 129 broke down. So you can see that on this Friday itself, we saw a pretty good closing, even though it still finished red. We did not finish at the bottom. So this shows that buyers actually step in, and hopefully we do see some rebound at the start of next week. In the event that we don't see the rebound, then it's likely for us to break down further. 114 and 101 is the next two support in line. For the resistance, it will be 131 and also 138 levels. Let's move on to PDD or Pin Tua Tua. So for PDD, you can see that we actually broke out this 68.71. We even hit this 73.02. Unfortunately, previous resistance here seems like it did not turn into good support. So if we see more bearish momentum next week, then we may come back to see this red baseline here at the $60 psychological support being tested. Not forgetting there is also some gaps to watch out for. So for the support to watch, you'll be 62.25, 58.92, and 55.59 in the upcoming sessions ahead. In the event that we can actually come back to retest 73.02, then potentially we may even climb higher towards this, even potentially heading towards $80 psychological resistance. Moving on to KWEB. So for KWEB, is equally bearish. You can see for yourself, we already broke down this 38.2%, which is already, it's very much like a last support here. It was well supported at least 38.2% for a while, but it broke down on Friday itself. So 23.6% and 26.23 is likely to be threatened, and even potentially pushing us towards this 23.72 in upcoming sessions ahead. Resistance to watch will be 27.70 and also 29.25. Let's move on to CWEB. So for CWEB, you can see it's very similar to KWEB, but it is slightly weaker. For KWEB, for KWEB, we are already at this 23.6%, while for CWEB, we already broke down. So 40.40, or the $40 psychological support here would likely to be tested next week in the event that we do not see a strong bounce at the beginning of the week. For the resistance, it will be the $50 psychological resistance, and thereafter, it will be the 56.30 levels. Lastly, we have FXI. So you can see that among all three, FXI is the most weakest. It's the weakest among the three. And as you can see, it is 27.83, which was this recent low here, was already reached. So if we do not see a double bottom and bounce up from here, then unfortunately, then we potentially may come back to retest this low at 26.13 levels. For the resistance to watch, it will be 28.80 at this blue conversion line and 29.80 at this red baseline. So as you can see, most of the Chinese stocks is already starting to show a decline. And if we do not continue to see a rebound from here, then unfortunately, we may come back to test its recent low or even potentially creating new lows for certain stocks. So if there's any changes, I'll give you guys an update. Thanks for stopping by. Till we meet again, appreciate the manipulation.